Hi, it's Rick Stewart. I'm back for BCI number 20 with Papa Molly.
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
Good to see you. Welcome. Let's talk about Ode to Billy Joe for a second. You brought that one out with Joe Crown Trio. We got a little cutaway footage. How do you relate to that one?
Well, I mean, I always liked that kind of, like I say, one of the very first music I was hip to was the surf music. So I always liked that kind of twangy instrumental versions of songs that were on the radio anyway.
Standards.
Yeah, exactly. And I always liked that kind of swampy sound. Tony Joe White, like I say, was a big influence on me. Even before that, when I heard Bobby Gentry doing that song, it was just like the rest of the country. Everybody just kind of was like, "Wow, this is different. Who is this?" And it felt like home. It felt like Louisiana or Mississippi or the South. Or such an interesting story, you know, with its little mystery at the end of it.
It's officially a Southern Gothic.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't know what happened. And now let's talk Grateful Dead connections. How did you start orbiting in that world?
I'm at a festival. I go backstage and this guy comes up to me and just starts talking to me like, "Hey man, that was a really great set." Wait a minute. Are you Bill Kreutzmann? Oh, it's Kreutzmann actually, but yeah. Within an hour of that meeting, he asked me if I wanted to drop some acid. And I was like, I said, it's been like 20 years since I've done any acid. Trust me, you've never done acid like this before. Off we went. We had a great weekend. He said, "Well, why don't you come out to my place in Hawaii, man? We'll see if we'll, do some music together." Shortly after that, we ended up booking a few dates, which was actually billed as Papa Molly with special guest Bill Kreutzmann. And so he introduced me to Robert Hunter, and Hunter and I started writing together. Next thing you know, we in the studio making a record and ended up touring for about 3 years after that. He recently passed away, and it kind of made me realize just how lucky I was to have written some songs with him. And I got to record this with Willie Nelson. Anyway, it's called the King Cotton Blues, and it's the first one that Robert and I wrote together. It's like... I got those King Cotton Blues that I can't deny. Always been in trouble, boys, never did know why. Some say it's my attitude, others say my luck. Those that say my just desserts can take a flying fuck. And that goes on, but
So yeah, you were in the shoes that often was Jerry Garcia was the co-writer with.
Yeah, big shoes to fill, man. I was never trying to be like Jerry or sing like him or play like him, and I think that's one of the reasons both of those guys took a liking to me, is because at that point in my life I couldn't change who I was already.
Yeah, they liked you for who you were. It was pretty cool.
At the age of 3 years old, my parents moved to Shreveport. Me and my mother would ride the train from Shreveport to New Orleans. So I got to be here every year for Mardi Gras, and a lot of times spend my whole summers down here. Got to hear a lot of great music when I was, this is in the 60s, when I started getting lessons from John Campbell. He started loaning me records. First one he loaned me was T-Bone Walker. From there, he started teaching me some bottleneck stuff and about open tunings and all that. That was a big, big influence on me. I got a Bible in my home. I got a Bible in my home. If I die and my soul get lost, ain't nobody's fault but mine. Sister taught me how to read. Sisters taught me how to read. If I die and my soul get lost, ain't nobody's fault but mine.
Was Nobody's Fault But Mine like part of that shtick back then, or when did you pick that one up?
I've been playing that song a pretty long time now. I think the Staples Singers version was the first version I heard of that. I always loved the Staples because of Pop's voice and because of Mavis. So that one's been in my repertoire probably at least 35 years or so. Couldn't have happened anywhere but here, I don't think, just because of the way that the African influence came together with the European influence, and
Yeah, the riverways.
Yeah, there was just something magical going on here, you know? As much as I have been influenced by the blues, I don't really consider myself to be like a blues musician per se, in that I'm more like a guy that's absorbed a lot of influences from a lot of places. And the blues made a big enough impression on me where I felt like if I was going to play rock and roll, I needed to get deeper into it. I went to Jamaica in 1977. My first wife and she worked at this job and she got an income tax return, $600. So we're at a bar celebrating, you know, and some guy said, "Oh, you should go to Jamaica." And I was just there and it was like a really cool scene. Okay, let's just do that. We land in Kingston. As we're walking out the gates of the airport, we notice that there's barbed wire and soldiers on the gates of the airport and people speeding by in jeeps with soldiers and guns, and you can hear explosions like a couple of blocks away and smell smoke and buildings, you know. Jamaican businessman, you know, comes speeding up in a nice little car and just screeches to a halt, rolls down his window. He looks at me, looks at her, looks at the baby, and goes, "Are you crazy?" I was like, I'm starting to think I am, you know. He goes, "Hop in 1977." And
they were having a political meltdown of some sort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
War in the streets every day, war in Babylon. We ended up staying for 3 weeks. That pretty much changed my whole outlook as far as like, when I came back, all I could think of was like this exciting new music I'd heard. And I ended up playing reggae for years and did pretty well at it. I started a band called the Killer Bees. Well, at one point we were called the #1 reggae band in America. Kind of like being the #1 Zydeco band in Sweden or something. But we got to work and tour and become friends with all the top reggae artists back in the 80s. And that's how I got to meet Burning Spear and went on tour with them. And that's how I got my nickname, Papa Molly. They were already calling me Molly because my name is Malcolm, right? And that's just how they pronounced a nickname from Malcolm. Then they realized that I had 4 children, and I was still really young. It was their way of kind of good-naturedly ribbing me a little bit about being a dad. Look at this one, look at that one, tell me which one look like me.
All right, Papa Molly, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rick.
Awesome.
Enjoyed it.